feel like shit already. I'm not even halfway. My legs are cramping, so I'm upping my fuel.
This is Early Miles, and I'm Steve Gonzer. On this show, we talk to runners, coaches, clinicians, and thinkers about the moments that shaped how they train, how they think, and how they ended up where they are. Early Miles is ad-free and supported by runners who are members of the RunSmart app. RunSmart is a training platform built by physical therapists. If you have an upcoming race or are looking to train and run smart, you can download the RunSmart app from the App Store or Google Play. And now, today's episode.
So what you just listened to was me at roughly, let's say, mile 17 of a 50-mile race that I've been preparing for, and I ended up DNFing. The good thing is things are okay, but I was not in a good spot, and I think it's good to talk about these things because a lot of times, you see all the glorious stuff of PRing and people doing these amazing things. You're like, what the hell? Like, why is it so easy for everyone else? And, I hear this all the time from runners and in my own household about like so-and-so's doing all these races and it's always going so well. And I think there's, for a lot of people, there is struggle, and rarely does that person show those struggles. And I think it's important to talk about. So we're going to go through this. I'm going to start with my pre-race that I recorded before the race. And then we're going to talk through what happened and just the overall challenges that came with this 50-mile that I signed up for. So here's the intro, and then we'll come back. We're going to talk about the race, and you already know it did not go well, and we'll pick it up from there. All right, so we're getting ready for 50-miler tomorrow. I've actually done quite a few of these. So this is the night before. I finally kind of settled for the night. And my last race was, I ran Berlin in the spring or in the fall. It didn't go well. It was like 85 degrees. It was a disaster. Came back and I ran the Hamilton Marathon, broke 3, which is kind of the goal at Berlin to kind of get back in the swing of things. And at that point, I started retraining again, and over the summer, or over the winter rather, in Buffalo, obviously pretty cold, started watching a lot of YouTube. And kind of how I got to this point was I like to joke that I was radicalized by YouTube. The lot of training through the winter on the treadmill, watching people run, ultra marathons, through the woods. And I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of at a point now with my running where I've been doing it for a while. I have this goal for Chicago, which I'll be running in the fall, that I want to break 250. And it's going to take some work. But I had this time, and I'm in a hotel room. So, like, there's police and stuff happening outside. So you might hear a lot of noise. But I, I wanted to go more on an adventure, part of the radicalization of YouTube. So I signed up for a Cayuga 50, which is a 50 miler at Robert Truman State Park in New York, central New York. And, you know, kind of, just train through the winter and through the spring to get ready for this trail race. My history with trail running is a little unique. I did it many times before with like a 50 miler. I've done it with a couple 50 milers, and my first one I actually ran 50 miles in the middle of winter in Buffalo, really flat on a tow path of the Erie Canal. And I actually ran like 840s for that. Came in like 7 hours and 40 something minutes. It was like, I did really well with that. I've run some other ones on the road and things. And so I have done these before in varying results. Some of them were ugly, some of them were good, like the one I mentioned. So I signed up for this one, and I don't really have a plan. So through the training, my training for this has been interesting. We're going to see how tomorrow goes. Put in a lot of work on the running. So I've got up to 70 plus miles a week. I've done some hiking out in Utah early in March, some long runs, time on feet in March. I bought my wife and I now you have a legit stairmaster in our home gym. So I've been doing a ton of climbing. So even in my 70-mile weeks, I'd be on this stair climber once or twice for an hour or 45 minutes to an hour with a 20 or 30-pound pack on, just really getting in some good time and enjoying it. So that brings me kind of to this race. And I'd like to say I've been prepping a lot. And part of this is looking, and I'm gonna pull up the course map and things, and we're gonna kind of look at this course. Um, a lot of times I feel like I talked to Ann Flower, um, and in the podcast, and she's so super laid back. And generally, a lot of our trail runners are more laid back than the road runners. I always joke that the road runners know every split, they know everything, da 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 da. Their training's so dialed in, they know all these things, and the trail runners are like kind of the free spirits of the running world. And for better or for worse, this is what this training has turned into for me. I put in a lot of time, but then in the last 2 weeks, through taper, work has been crazy, and I have legitimately haven't looked at the course. I knew it's hilly, and I kind of knew what it looked like, but started looking at the course really today. The race is tomorrow. The first thing I found, I just texted Celia and my wife that it starts at 6 tomorrow, not 6:30. So I found that out, which is good to show up on time. But I'm actually doing a lot of things that I normally wouldn't do. First, I'm going out and treating this race like it's an adventure. I'm not going out for time. I want to feel good, and work. I can't put into words how crazy it's been. So anyone in the healthcare who's ever changed an EMR and owned that process probably knows what that's like. And if they've owned the process and it doesn't go well because of things out of your control and you're trying to hold it together, you're the duct tape holding this thing together. That was me for the last 2 weeks, and to the point where I it's just like zombie mode, like out of it. Drove my daughter to Taekwondo, but I went down the wrong streets and I'm like, I don't even know where I'm going. So it's been struggle. And really what we're going to be looking for in this next, um, tomorrow is to get through the first 25 pretty low key and see what happens. So, you know, interestingly with this course, it's 50 miles and it's 8 to 10,000 feet. It's a little harder to measure in trail, but it pegs 8 to 10,000 feet, which is a lot. I spend a lot of time running steep roads on this in this training block to the point where like uncontrollable downhills, really steep uphills, steady uphills, been on the Stairmaster. So I really don't know how to gauge this. I don't know how to pace it. I have in my mind I just want to go under 10 hours for this thing. And being that it's super hilly and it's trail, you really can't gauge it. So we're gonna see what happens. There's 2 stream crossings I know about. And I sent out a nice email before. So if you're watching, the second part of this is going to be my post race breakdown of what happened. So right now we're all smiles and sitting, relaxing. And if you're watching this, you can see the course breakdown here. And I'm just trying to figure out like what's the approach. I have a couple different things that, even if you're not watching, things that I think might help people. The first thing is the course gives you a GPS file that you can load into your Garmin. So tomorrow on my Garmin, I'm going to have the course on here, and I'll actually see kind of what's coming up in elevation. I'll also see the course to know that I'm staying on course. And I think the biggest thing is just knowing like, where am I at in relation to elevation? So you can see on here, it's up and down, steep up, steep down, steep up, and there's just no steady flats. It's 95% road, 5%, or 95% trail, 5% road. There's like one little axis road you run on. So this is kind of what I've been trying to figure out as I get ready for tomorrow. Today and yesterday was all about carb loading. So we've been doing that, lots of carbs, a lot of drink carbs. So like apple juice, I put in I've been using Morton drink mix and things like that. I'm doing something I normally wouldn't do either, which is I'm trying new things tomorrow. Like I don't have any crew. I'm here alone. I had a friend sign up with me. He got sick, missed a bunch of training, couldn't make it. So no crew, solo, 50 miles with a bunch of other folks, and we're gonna see how it goes. Interestingly, some things that I'm gonna be doing differently. So I got it on my watch. I think that's gonna help quite a bit. But I use Never Second gels now, which if you haven't tried them, I love them. They're very like watery. I think of them like this is gonna sound bad, but I think they're kind of very similar to like a shooter back in college. Like you tear away and it's liquidy. There's not that texture of a gel. So we have that dialed in, we're ready to go. I actually put them, which is probably, Bill Armstrong, who I talked to on the podcast, who's the CEO of Never Second, is gonna hate this. I put them in a gel flask because this holds 3 gels. This holds 3 gels. So each of these is 60 grams, is 90 grams of carbs. And then I also have my vest, which has electrolyte drink in each pouch. So I'll be nursing myself from here. Each of these has 50. So I have 100, so 90, 90, and 100. do the math, it's 280. So about 300 carbs on me. I'll be grabbing stuff at aid stations as we go through. And really the plan is for me is I have these hydro flasks that are filled with gels. I'll be drinking from them. I have water bottles. So when I come through, it's a double loop course. When I come through, you can kind of see if you're watching, I have water bottles filled up with 3.5 more gels that I can just refill these for the second loop and go from there. And I have a change of shirt, I have Vaseline for everything. I have change of socks for the stream crossing if I need it, some bread. But I think the biggest challenge for something like this for me at this time is found out in 12 to 14 months ago that I have celiac. So that makes training for these things a lot harder, but they're going to have some potatoes on the course and things. So we're going to see how this goes. I'll come back and let everyone know, where things were. Race starts at 6. We're carb loaded through, get ready for bed here soon. Wake up probably around 3 or 4, get some carbs and go back to bed. Get to the race about a half hour early or 45 minutes early. I'm really excited. I'm going to pull it up. I actually haven't checked it lately, but let's pull up the weather. So 48 at 6 a.m., no rain, cloudy, and it'll peak out at 63. So you can't ask for a better day. Can't ask for things to go well. We'll see what happens. We're going to see where things are at, and I got to decide if I'm leaving to go home tomorrow. Probably not. Probably Sunday. But we'll see. And I'll let you guys know on the other side of this where things are at. God willing, it's going to go great. I'm really just looking forward to the other interesting thing I told someone is I don't think I'm going to be listening to music at all. It's been an overstimulating week as things have gone on, and I might actually make a couple phone calls and talk to people and just have a good time, enjoy it. It's actually one of the prettiest races. You go through the Ithaca gorges, which has tons of waterfalls. Interestingly, there's a lot of steps. That's what those hills came from. When I showed let's see if I can pull it up again. When I showed the elevation map, there's a lot of steps on this course, which I found out last week from a friend who's done this race or similar race, and I hope that the Stairmaster kicks in. I haven't done a lot of downhill though, so we're going to see how that shakes out, and I will be back hopefully in good shape and ready to go and get ready for the Chicago training block, which I want to break 250. So I'll see you guys on the other side. And before I jump into this, I think I didn't talk about this in the open, but put a lot of effort into this training cycle. I ran a lot of hills, did a lot of trails. I did stepper. We bought a Stairmaster, not for this, but we have a Stairmaster in my home gym. Did a lot of that with weighted vests. I was in probably, I think, the best shape I've been in at least 10 years for this race. And everything went well. I wasn't injured. I didn't miss a lot of time. May was a little bit of a clusterfuck for me because of work and Buffalo Marathon and all these things that were kind of pulling for time, but I got it all in. It was all good, and I felt okay going into this race. What it turns out is that, as I reflect back on this, I'm gonna talk about some of the numbers and things that I just when I look back, I'm like, oh my God, like what am I doing? I was so laid back with this race and so underestimated what it was going to take to do well. And I think at the end, I could have finished this and I could have gone, but it was going to come at a cost. It was going to come at a cost of recovery, injury, wearing my body down. And I made the decision not to do that with 15 miles to go. Part of the things that I think went wrong in this race, was multifactorial. I just don't think it was a great day for me. I did some things that kind of skewed me in the wrong direction, but even with the little bit of skew that I had, it ended up going terribly wrong way before it needed to. And yeah, so I think just for understanding, I ended up DNFing at 35 miles. And in that 35 miles, I had about, I'm gonna pull it up as we go through this, but I just want to double check. I can share my screen and stuff as we go. But for those listening, 35 miles, 7,200 feet of climbing. The race has 10,000 plus feet over the 50 miles. And that's just of gain. So total ascent, 7,200 feet. And I knew it was 10,000 feet. Putting that in perspective, you know, is tough. Like, what is 7,200 feet? It's hilly, great. So I did some looking around just to kind of equate to like 50 miles, 10,000 feet. What does that mean? It's not the hardest in the world, but it's certainly up there in difficulty. The like Hard Rock, which is one of the hardest ultramarathons, 100 miles, does 30,000 feet and some elevation, where you're at elevation. This is at, we're only starting at 1,000 feet of elevation. So there's none of that. Leadville, Colorado, the Leadville 100 race does about 10 to 15,000 in 100 miles. This does 10,000 in, let me actually double check. What's the total? I looked this up before. Net gain of Leadville. It's going to tell me the town of 100. So Leadville, which is a very difficult course. And again, this course is a lot different because you're going from like, up to 14,000 feet. Like, so that's not, it does 14 to 18,000 total elevation gain in 100, and it peaks at 12,000 feet. So you have the elevation with that. So very difficult race, but just to put it in perspective, that's kind of where we're at. And from a East Coast mountainside, to try to understand, it's like this race is like climbing up Hope's Pass 3 times in 50 miles and adding all of it to it. Cascade Mountain is 2,200 feet and of ascent. So you're doing roughly, just under 5 times going up and down Cascade Mountain. There's things I did along the way that I thought would have prepped me for this. Did some climbing, hard climbs in Utah. I did I did a climb very hard. I did twice, which was, I think, 3,002 miles at the face of a mountain, and came down it the second time running. And ultimately, doesn't matter, didn't go well. And it's kind of how it went. So the race in itself, if you're looking for a hard challenge, this race has it. It has a beautiful course. First of all, I'll show some pictures along the way that I'll pull up and we can look at if you're watching this. But the bigger item is just the challenge with it. And what I wasn't prepared for was the steep downhills, which we'll talk about as the race goes on. So race morning, this is the other thing I'm really struggling with, is that you couldn't ask for a better day. 40 something degrees at the start, peak 60 degrees, overcast most of the day except for the afternoon. Dry trails 90% of the time. Can't get another day probably like that. With feeling, if I bundle it all together, felt good, training went well, cool day, beautiful course. You knew it was difficult, and you fall apart. So to kind of talk about this, one of the biggest mistakes I made, and I'm going to share, a graph here in a second. Let's see if I can do this right. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and just kind of talk through this. So you don't have to see this. It's just helpful to look at. My plan was to stay in zone 1, maybe go into zone 2 a little bit. My zones are different than a lot of people's. Heart rate zones is so different from runner to runner. For me, my zone 2 is it peaks out at 145. And given the steepness of some of these climbs, you're going to go over that. You're going to dip into it, but can you sustain that? I function most of the start of this race in mid to upper zone 2, and I really wanted to be below that. Challenge is, or where I went wrong, is like I was so concerned about like knowing the course, because I've never run this before, and everyone I talked to never ran it, so it didn't matter. But knowing where are the ups? Am I at the top? Am I where am I at? So I loaded it on my watch, like I mentioned at the start, and I had that as my watch screen. I wasn't tracking effort at all. I was running on feel, which I think is dumb on my end because I know better. I've been running forever, and I didn't want to like have it up where I was like looking at the mileage, because it's a long day. No shit, it's gonna take a while. I should have been looking at heart rate at least, be like, hey, you can't be dipping into zone 3 this much early into this race, because I paid for it. So I'm gonna share my screen, kind of just talk through some of the numbers. And on the course, you can see the gray line. Let's actually see if we can change this a minute. I'm going to expand my heart rate, and I want to look at elevation with it. So the green line is elevation. You can see the hilliness to it. So I'll talk about some of these hills because some of these are the ones that made it way more difficult to do the last 50 miles. The way the course is set up, I'll actually show that is you come up here. Come on. I don't care about a new personal record. So you do 2 loops. So you do a 10-mile loop, then a 15-mile loop, and then you do it twice. The 15-mile loop is where I bailed. I didn't go out for that second 15-mile loop. But when we look at just heart rate, we look at elevation, without even having the elevation on it, you can see like I'm consistently upper zone 2 going up into low zone 3 on some of these climbs. So I'm going to put elevation over the top. And like some of the big climbs right out of the gate, you know, let's see, 150 beats per minute at the top of this thing. That is mid zone, low to mid zone 3 for me. And it kind of just hung up there. And I didn't really come back down from that. I just messed up the graph. Oh, I could hit reset soon. So looking at the elevation chart, you know, I felt pretty good, and I just wasn't monitoring anything as I came through. Really where things started to become trouble. So you'll notice right around here, let's get rid of this. You'll see I dropped here. This is the 10-mile check-in. I spent some time here. I don't want to do this over time, over distance. So at mile 10, I got there. I grabbed some bread. Being gluten-free was a huge challenge with this because like I couldn't grab a sandwich or anything. So I refilled bottles. I got some Coke. I grabbed a piece of bread I brought with me, and I went back out on the course. So I dropped back down, and then you can kind of see I came right back up into upper zone, low to mid zone 3, and that kind of correlates with what I think is this. This is the thing that I knew if I went back out for my second loop right here. This is where I knew I had to go to. And you can see like I'm in zone, yeah, I'm in zone 3 going up this climb. But honestly, like the entire race, I walked. I like this hill I walked. So super steep up. I walked it, I hiked it. I wasn't running it. I ran maybe a flat or two. Um, but apparently I was hiking too aggressively. Uh Interestingly enough, when I look back at the race, this this is where I felt the best, like on the hiking. And in my training, I did uh hour plus on a stairmaster with a sometimes a 40-pound pack. So I was ready for this. Looking back at this, um, you know, I actually have a video that played at the start of this that I'm gonna play. So let me pull that up. And I'm just gonna play it again because that actually that's not that climb. So I'm gonna hold on to that. The the big thing here was that I knew that I was kind of not feeling it, and it was mostly the downhill. So as a physical therapist, my brain goes on and says, like, okay, I ran hills at home, I ran trails at home. My Stairmaster obviously is only a climbing motion up. Where I struggled the most and what ultimately led to my DNF was the inability to like control my descents. Towards the end, not only was I like an old man shuffle, but I could barely walk downhill. Like I was like a loose bag of bones. I was just kind of tripping over myself, tripping on things, catching my toe. You know, in the first 3 miles of this race, I rolled my ankle twice. I fell down a flight of stairs, probably like only 6 steps. Luckily, it was like 50 steps, but luckily I didn't hit that. Banged up my elbow. But the last chunk of this is where I really struggled. So going up the hill, you know, I came up, I felt pretty good. And then you do this little pass, which if you haven't been to Ithaca, it's beautiful. Robert Tremont State Park, you're running through it, a lot of gorge, a lot of waterfalls. And let me see if I can pull up, you know, some of these. Actually, let's see. I'm gonna play, probably should turn it down a little bit, but you'll get the idea. So this is an example of like kind of some of the beauty of this course.
Feel like shit already. I'm not even halfway. My legs are cramping, so I'm upping my fuel.
That part of that course was right actually here. And this is when I started to cramp. And this is about, let's see, you start at 450, you go up to, it's about a 500-foot climb, but it's all stairs. So it's very steep. And I started to cramp. I upped my fuel. I got through that. The wheels started to fall off, came down, felt okay. This climb even felt okay. When I got to here, so if you're watching, I'm at the top of a point. We just went from, let's see, 400 feet up to, let's see, it's an 800-foot climb roughly, towards the end of this. And, coming out of cramps, this is where I knew I was in trouble, because this descent, which is very sharp, you're losing the 800 feet in a mile or so. I actually called my wife and let her know, like, hey, I'm not doing well. And for those that run ultras, my friend said it great, which is like, half the times these things don't go well at all. And, there's no guarantee. Like a marathon and stuff, like if you train for it, when shit hits the fan, maybe you have like an hour or two left. Shit hits the fan of an ultra, 50 or longer, 100 miles, you have a really long day on your tap. Coming down this descent, basically, I called my wife and being like, my legs like hurt way more than they need to. And as I said, I'm not even at halfway. So this is, I go back and like, is this, did I put the idea in my head? I fucking hurt. Like, I don't know. My body was not doing good. You can see the gray line behind this if you're looking at the video. Like my heart rate is trending down at this point. So I already feel like I'm crashing and burning a little bit. And I even said to my wife, which is a little bit of foreshadowing, like I think I'm gonna have rhabdo and this is over. So rhabdomyolysis is when the muscles break down way too much and drop a lot of protein. The kidneys can't filter. It clogs up the kidneys. It could be catastrophic. But I'm like, my legs, you can't be at mile 20 and have 30 to go and be like, your legs are kaput. So I called my wife. She talked me through this. She's like, just, get to the next aid station, see how you feel. So that was the game plan. And really, I was like, I don't think I'm going to leave this next aid station. The plan at this point for this race was to come out of the aid station and feel like, okay, let's go into loop 2. Like, I knew it wasn't going to be great the entire time, but to be not feeling great at mile 20 is early. It's especially for how much prep I put into this. So as I went through, I came through this downhill. You cross the stream 4 times in this race, twice if you don't do the second loop. By the time I got there the second time, super muddy, like people around me and even me, you kind of fall into the creek, catch yourself, and then run through it. I came through the aid station, and if I get rid of this overlay, I'm gonna go back to sharing. You'll see I spent extra time at the aid station, and the goal was to just get my bearings and kind of stop for a second and be like, just chill for a sec. Like see if you could regroup. Is like one of the things in ultras. I also know my friend, I called him later. I'm like, hey, I'm in a bad spot. I'm not feeling good. Mind you, like I ran for 7 hours. I ran by myself for 99% of it. And I did it without music. And that was a choice. I tried to play music. I'm like, I just can't listen to anything. Like it was too much noise. I was overstimulated. So I ran by myself. So I get to this aid station. So you can see, let's see, mile right here, mile 25. This drop right in here is, you see my heart rate goes down to 103. At this point, I changed my socks. I'm in the point where like I got to the aid station and I could change my socks. My calves were twitching a little bit. Got more Coke, refilled everything. And at this point, like I'm just trying to like, see if I work through the other side of this. Interestingly, like the amount of pain I was at that video where I was climbing, I'm cramping, my legs feel like shit. When I called my wife, that pain just persisted and became a little bit numb to some of that as the race went on, but kind of regathered myself and spent some time in this aid station just to see if I could come back to life. A little bit of foreshadowing is it turned out I was fairly dehydrated, and that's what I was really kind of worried about as things were going on. I was cramping. I'd fuel up a little bit more, I'd be good. Before this race, I drank a ton of water. Going up to the start line, I hydrated a ton. I was hydrating consistently throughout this race. Something happened. Like I was super dehydrated afterwards, which we'll talk about towards the end. But I go out on my second loop and, just see if I could fight through, come to the other side and get to the other side of this. So as you can see, if you're looking, my heart rate starts to drop pretty significantly. Here's the other aid station. I just kind of took some time here, dropped below 100 beats per minute, and then, but like really, you're looking at here, like I'm in zone 2. Towards the end, I'm in zone 1, and I'm doing a death shuffle as I came through. If I put the elevation back on it, you can see some of these climbs as I come up. Like it's pretty unforgivable. I think where I got most beat up was honestly is the steep descents that I prepped for, which is aggravating because it was not fun. Needless to say, kind of came through the next aid station, paired up with someone, for maybe half a mile, and then he was gone. People were catching me from behind, and I just knew at that point, at mile 30, like it was like the struggle of, am I being a baby about this, or do I need to get going? But then it turned into what I mentioned at the start of this, which was as I ran longer and longer, the worse I felt. And there's one thing I knew is that going on the downhills, like I could not control it. So what started off is, okay, you're gonna walk the uphills, you can take it a little bit slower, you're gonna run the levels, and you're gonna run the downhills. Started to begin with at mile 20, like this is too steep to even run down. I'm gonna try my best to navigate it. Then it turned into later on walking down a hill and grabbing trees as I went because my quads just I couldn't decelerate. I couldn't stop myself as I started to go. On the back half of this, I tripped on one of the steps, almost went over the gorge enough where runners coming towards me were like stopped to make sure I was okay. I wasn't the only one tripping. I had to help someone up who fell and almost went down. Not a steep part, but they were kind of rumbling and tumbling, so we pulled him out. But things were just getting worse. Started to catch roots, started to catch things and banging my foot on stuff. And, made it through the steep climb coming through. But you can see, like, if you just look at the gray line, I'll just kind of explain it if you're listening. The elevation's going up, my heart rate's continuing to go down. And for the first time in history ever for me, I was logging 14-minute miles. I, can climb really well. You would look at this and be like, I beg to differ. But I am a fairly strong hill runner. And this was a disaster. So as I came through, I called my wife, called my friend, and said, "Hey, this is where things are at. I think I'm gonna drop when I get to 35." Called my wife. She's like, "What do you want me to say? Do you want me to tell you to push through?" And I looked at her and I said, honestly, there's two things, and one's gonna sound like an asshole thing to say. The first thing I said is if I don't call it, I don't think I'm gonna run for 6 months. It's gonna take me so long to recover. Like I am trashed, and my body just did not have it. It was not. I still swear it was prepped for today or for this race. It did not want to do it on this day. So I told her that. And the other thing I told her is, when I get back to this aid station, I have 15 miles, and where I'm at right now, like I'm either gonna hurt myself because I can't slow down. Like if I start going downhill, I'm gonna be ass over tea kettle. I'm just gonna start rolling, and these things are steep, and I'm just gonna roll until I stop. But also, this is the asshole part. I'm not going out to walk 15 miles. Like, there's this toughness of like, yeah, you can finish. That's not what I was out to do. To walk 15 miles, I'm fine with being miserable, but I need to run and and I'm fine with the pain. I could not run. So got back to the aid station. And I just knew like if I went back out, I the scary thing is if you're looking at the chart, I knew I had this climb again, which was a monster, and this climb, which is also a monster. The big concern was right here. So that steep downhill from mile 22 to mile 23 and a half, a mile and a half steep downhill. I don't know how I would have navigated that. I could have, but I want to run Chicago this year. I have big goals for Chicago. And I wasn't out there to just completely trash myself. If this was my A race and I was like, the first time I've ever done a 50, I probably would have pushed through. If it was my first 100, I would have just slowed down. And granted, if I wasn't such an asshole and looked and made sure I wasn't in zone 2, zone 3 at the start of this thing, I wouldn't have been in this. I completely, botched the execution on this race. So that's kind of where I walked in. I want to say, who do I tell that I'm dropping? Number 63. And the guy said, that's me. I'll take your number. And I said, great race. Really appreciate everything you've done. And he looked at me and said, sometimes you don't have it. The food cart's open. Why don't you go fill your belly? And I don't know how many people dropped, but this course, I called my wife on the way home. I drove home the 3 hours this morning and I said, like, I don't know, like, it is such a strong challenge that I want to go back next year and try again. Not out of the spite of it being like, shit, I didn't finish. I need to finish it. It was just a super hard challenge. And I love things that you put yourself out there and you're like, I can stop sharing, I guess. I have no idea if I'm going to finish. Like the uncertainty of that, of the hardness is really, it pulls me towards it, of doing things that, aren't a guarantee. Like in marathoning and stuff, like there's no guarantee on like hitting your goal time or whatever. It's a different mindset of like, can I finish this? And I do think I can finish this race. I just need to not be an asshole about how I run it. So I am considering going back. The trickier part of this is that from the time I went to the race and drank all that water, drank a lot on course, which I thought was enough. I got back and I'm like, I haven't gone to the bathroom in a while. And this is it took me 7 hours to run, or a quote about run in quotes. It took me 7 hours to do that. I got back to my room and I'm like, it's been about 9 hours since I've gone to the bathroom. Started drinking. I started taking some electrolytes. 9 hours turned into 10 hours. I'm starting to get a little nervous. 10 hours turned into about 11 hours. I had lots of water, had lots of sodium, ate a little bit. And I'm starting to think, at this point, it's probably time to either go get an IV and also check to see if I'm in the early stages of rhabdo. Because for those that don't know, like I mentioned previously, it can be very serious. It can shut down your kidneys. The muscle breaks down in these large muscle groups like your quads, which was the worst for me. My calves are pretty good. It's all quad. They break down in those large, the creatine kinase, the CK, which they measure for, can get clogged up in the kidneys from what I understand and cause some issues. I'm just going to clarify that is really quick. I'm looking at my computer here. I'm typing in AI just to make sure I got this right, so I don't want to mislead people, but I'm pretty sure. So in simple terms is rhabdo. So this can be life-threatening, and the nut of it is it can cause your kidneys to shut down. It can be really bad. They do these tests called CK tests, which they also use for heart attacks because the heart breakdown, it releases it into the blood and you can measure it. skeletal muscle, your heart is muscle. So your muscles, when they break down, can do the same thing, and it gets into the circulation of blood. They can measure it. Usually you get an IV, you get urine test if you can go, you get a CK test to see, and then so it says here, first, the muscle, it's muscle breakdown, not generic protein breakdown, which I just mentioned. When muscle cells rupture, they spill their contents into the blood, most importantly, a muscle protein called myoglobin, along with potassium and other intracellular stuff. Second, and this is the part to flip, it's not that the kidneys can't filter it, they do filter it, and that's exactly the problem. A flood of myoglobin is toxic to the kidneys' filtering tubules and physically clogs them. Like pouring sludge through a fine filter. So the injury comes from the kidneys being overwhelmed trying to clear it, not from being unable to. Simple chain, you can say the, let's see. Yeah, so basically it's that. It goes on through some other things. Muscles break down and flood your blood with a protein your kidneys have to filter, and it's big enough in amounts that the protein basically clogs and poisons the filter. So that was the concern. Tried to hold off on telling my wife because I didn't want to worry, because I was there by myself. Talked to my physician. We are monitoring it. Talked to my friends who have known people who have gone through it. So just for context, I had 2.5 liters of water. Nothing was happening. Ate some food, and then eventually was able to urinate, and it took me about 10 to 11 hours. Small amounts, but then it started to clear up. This was good. The color was good, so I wasn't too concerned. Which, when I think about the 2.5 liters of water that came in, what this kind of leads me to is this next piece of this race falling apart, or the final piece was severely dehydrated. I was not hot. I drank a ton. Something just did not want to cooperate that day. Because when I drank the 2.5 liters, I wasn't urinating because my body was retaining the water to try to rebalance, from what I understand. So it wasn't that my kidneys couldn't produce urine. It was that my kidneys were trying to not to produce urine so it could provide it back into the body. So needless to say, we're home. Things could have gone differently. I am extremely sore, as you would expect. Kudos to everyone that finished. Like, I think this is the part of me that, like, when I knew I was going to cancel, it was at mile 35. And in this 35, you have 15 left. You should still be running. And being able to run the downhills, especially. Even the slight downhills, I couldn't run. And people were just, running by me. And I think we were all in pain. It was the pain and I couldn't run was the issue. And the pain that I could barely walk down hills that made me make the call. So otherwise, at this point, it's lick my wounds. I am going to consider going back. Honestly, it was a great race. It was so beautiful. I want to show, kind of, let's see if I can find just like some of the prettiness to this race. Saw the one, the other one's not in here. So I'll have to edit it in. So edit now. And this is just kind of the prettiness of running through some of the trail. And I am looking possibly to go back and do it. But right now, it's the heel. It's going to get back to normal. Get back into training. Chicago's up next. Hopefully it goes better than today. But you learn. And even after all these years, I still made mistakes. I still was too loose. I said it before the race that I was just kind of like flying by the seat of my pants. And when you fly by the seat of your pants, sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. Good news is that I am very fit for where I'm at. This did not reflect that. But on to the next one. And I think there's no shame in calling it, especially when you know that you don't want to call it for no reason, right? Like, you're there to do hard things. But at what, you have to have a recognition of, like, if I continue on, what's the cost of this? And for me, I knew I was in trouble, and I knew that doing this was going to cause problems, and to finish it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Early Miles. This podcast is ad-free and made possible by the runners who support the Run Smart app. RunSmart is a training platform built by physical therapists who run with an injury prevention first approach. Inside the app, you get personalized running plans, strength and mobility work designed specifically for runners, and guidance that adapts to your life, training, and body change over time. RunSmart's mission is simple: to build lifelong runners. If you're looking to train smarter and support the show, you can download the RunSmart app to get started. And a quick but important note, this podcast is for general educational and informational purposes only. Nothing discussed here should be considered medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional regarding injury, pain, or any medical condition. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on Early Miles.